At the northern end of the former kingdom of East Anglia is Norfolk, a county epitomised by low-lying farmland, flintstone houses, and one of the country's most stunning coastlines. But what are its prettiest towns? To establish this, I've visited them all personally, and my conclusions are presented to you in this top 10 list. As per the rules of this series, villages are not included for consideration, but cities are, which adds one contender to the pool. Mind you, condensing this to just 10 entries in a county such as Norfolk was a major challenge in itself, let me tell you. But enough preamble, let's get to it. Number 10. Just like in the Herefordshire episode of this series, we start off with a trick pronunciation, in this case from the town of Windham. Yes, the first M and the O may be silent, but the town's architecture speaks volumes, and the story it tells, in common with a couple of later entries, is one of fire. In 1615, Windham was set ablaze by 3 travellers and a local accomplice, while the townsfolk were in church, on account of it being a Sunday. The arsonists stayed and watched, a decision which they presumably regretted when they were caught and subsequently hanged. Windham Market Cross, built 2 years later, serves to this day in all its octagonal glory as a reminder of the town's phoenix-like recovery 4 centuries ago. Number 9. Next is a town that's home to Norfolk's only National Hunt racecourse, Fakenham. With no railway station for a good 18 miles or so, this is about as out in the sticks as it comes as far as towns go in the east of England, and with it comes a sense that life is taken in at a slower pace here, which seems all the more fitting, what with this being the nearest market town to the ancient pilgrimage site of Little Walsingham. For worshippers staying within Fakenham, the parish church of St Peter and St Paul serves the town in that regard, and in grand fashion, with a 15th century tower of flint keeping a watchful eye over the market square of a predominantly Georgian style, with fire once again being the likely factor, multiple historic fires in Fakenham's case as it happens. Now, if only there was some sort of building material with fire-resistant properties like the one used in the church, it had surely become an icon of Norfolk itself. Number 8. Now to a town that's gone by at least 2 different names, both involving chess pieces. King's Lynn. This was once Bishop's Lynn on account of the first Bishop of Norwich owning the manor here, and so it remained until Henry VIII came along with other ideas. King takes bishop, as it were. But even before the Reformation, this was a town of immense importance, owing to its affiliation with the Hanseatic League. Its role as a trading port with Northern Europe was made possible by its position at the mouth of the River Great Ouse, as it quite literally comes out in the wash. And if you've heard me crack that joke once before, I offer you no apology. Architectural reminders of its medieval past are scattered around the labyrinthine streets, along with a few other gems, such as Customs House from 1683, predating the life and times of local man George Vancouver, to whom the Canadian city is ultimately named after. However, things take a strange turn at the eastern end of the town centre. King's Lynn did suffer some bomb damage during the Second World War, but it's unclear whether or not that accounts for these streets that can only be described as Basildon-esque, or if simply poor town planning was the culprit here, in what would otherwise have been one of Norfolk's finest. Number 7. Just down the road from Anne Boleyn's birthplace is our next entry, Elsham. The stunning churches are coming in thick and fast here. This one goes back to the 14th century, or possibly earlier, with John of Gaunt, the second Duke of Lancaster, having had a hand in its construction. The town around it is none too shabby either, but then it does have to keep up appearances with the neighbouring village, where you'll find the Jacobean masterpiece Blickling Hall, whose historic owners include the Boleyn family, the Hobart family, and Bono. Well, according to Alan Partridge in that one episode. But if the splendour of the latter is too overstated for you, there's always a boutique shopping experience to be had right here in this medieval wall town. Number 6. Next up is a town whose name is said to derive from Old English for woodland. A handy clue for German speakers right there. Here's Holt. The architecture of Holt is largely defined by one catastrophic event which took place in 1708, and I bet you'll never guess what it was. It was a fire. The folks responsible for rebuilding Holt really went to town, so to speak, on one particular material, flint. In common with neighbouring Fakenham, but more pronounced here, this would become one of the most defining aesthetics of the county, especially so here in North Norfolk. It's just a pity that you can't reach Holt by train. Or can you? That's thinly veiled foreshadowing, by the way. Number 5. Somehow we've gone the entire first half of this list without even touching upon one of Norfolk's greatest assets, the coast. Well, that ends now, courtesy of our next entry, Sheringham. Despite it being very much a product of the Victorian seaside boom, Sheringham maintains a distinctly Norfolk feel to it. A dose of flint helps in that regard, even if done in tribute to the Georgians, as a lack of listed status would imply. But who needs listed buildings when you have colourful beach huts and seaside views unimpeded all the way to the horizon on a stretch of sandy beach enjoyed by humans and canines alike? You can even reach the town by rail, just as our Victorian ancestors did, and from 2 different directions, in space and time, what with a modern station connecting it to Norwich and an adjacent heritage railway station serving the town with trains to and from Holt, choo-chooing their way around North Norfolk. Richard Beeching would be seething at the very sight. Number 4. Now to another coastal town, and one with a bit of a twist at that. Wells next to the sea. As its descriptive name hints, this is an excellent place for relaxing at the beach with family members, including those with 4 legs. But do bear in mind that Wells Beach is situated about a mile away from the town centre on account of the incredibly marshy nature of this stretch of coast. The history of Wells, which is safe to abbreviate this far away from Somerset by the way, goes far beyond the era of Victorian sea bathers. At the harbour side you can almost feel the echoes of 7 or more centuries of trading, sending grain to London and receiving coal from Newcastle, just for instance. The rest of the town appears fittingly steadfast in maintaining the aesthetic of a medieval port, rather than a Victorian entrepreneur's vision, although a few ice cream shops and amusement arcades do offer a fair compromise. Number 3. We're heading back inland for our first podium entry, all the way to the Norfolk-Suffolk border in fact, and to a sublime town with a ridiculous name, Diss. Now, you may be expecting me to load this segment with puns, but I fear that may become a distraction, so I'm actually going to self-impose a pun amnesty, a wordplay moratorium, if you will. So let's talk about Diss. Geologically speaking, its history is said to go back to the last ice age, which is when this small lake in the very centre of town is believed to have been formed, providing a healthy dose of serenity that would be the envy of most towns. There's no shortage of architectural gems, such as this 16th century former merchant's house just opposite the medieval church of St Mary, and it was this same church that local man John Skelton, tutor and court poet to the then future King Henry VIII, was appointed rector. But there is a 20th century poet with a strong link to the town, and that is none other than Sir John Betjeman, who penned A Mind's Journey to Diss and made a documentary called Something About Diss, wherein he expressed his concern regarding the threats of modernisation that the town faced back in the 60s. Thankfully, these threats appear not to have materialised, at least not yet, which is more than could be said for some other towns I needn't mention, but to this day, Dis remains a historic gem just waiting to be discovered. Oh, bugger. Number 2, and it's off to the beach once again, as our runner-up spot goes to what is, for me, the finest seaside town in East Anglia, and dare I say, one of the finest in Britain, Cromer. Show me someone who speaks ill of the great British seaside, and I'll show you someone who's never been to Cromer. Arguably, its most striking aspect is not the coastline, but its parish church, which rivals many cathedrals in the looks department. Moreover, along a shoreline, this is truly a rare sight, and one which punctuates the importance of the town's extensive sea walls. It's also home to a pier that couldn't be situated any more perfectly as far as skyline shots go, making this a photographer's dream. But does Cromer get crowded during the summer months, you might be wondering? A little, but compared to the likes of Brighton, it's a drop in the ocean, or the sea, as the case may be. Before I reveal the top spot though, I do have to give an honourable mention to Reetham. This is one of many towns that could justifiably receive a "what about" type of comment in the comments section below. The reason I'm singling it out for special acknowledgement is due to one of the rarest sites in the entire country within its compact town centre, a single churchyard containing 3 medieval churches. Okay, so one of them is looking a bit ruined, but the other 2 stand strong today. Mind you, one has since been converted for community functions, so be sure to check which is which, or else you might walk straight into a Pilates class. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything. Number 1. So, as cities are included for consideration, that can only mean one thing. The top spot goes to the place where pretty much all roads, train tracks and bus routes in Norfolk lead to: Norwich. Where do we begin? Good question. Norwich Cathedral would be the logical choice, considering it boasts the second tallest spire in the UK, behind Salisbury. In most cities, this would be the standout landmark, but then Norwich isn't most cities. There are in the region of 50 medieval churches here, some converted, granted, but enough for every Sunday in the year, as is famously claimed. As for the haphazard street layout, that only adds to the charm. Alan Partridge may not be a fan of the pedestrianisation of Norwich city centre, but I can live with it. In fact, there's one street that deserves special mention, and that is of course Elm Hill, one of the most iconic cobbled streets in the whole country. And it was largely shaped by, wouldn't you know, a great fire. This broke out in 1507. One building was narrowly missed by the inferno, the Britain's Arms, built in circa 1347. The rest of the street has an understandably Tudor feel to it. Amazingly though, this was all considered for demolition in the 1920s to make way for a swimming pool of all things. The plan was opposed at a council meeting by just a single vote. Is it a flawless city on the visual front? Well, no, but then what city is? Besides, Norwich is more than the sum of its parts. It's the embodiment of East Anglia as a whole, resolutely refusing to modernise beyond what's necessary. It's the glint in the eye of anyone who's visited when it comes up in conversation, and it's the spirit of the county's most famous son, Horatio Nelson, as he led from the front, telling his fleet that England expects. And to whom better to give the last word? So, do you agree or disagree with my picks? By all means let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you'd like to catch up with other counties covered in this series so far, check out the link on the screen now. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.